Israel was just hit by a ballistic missile launched from Yemen, and it landed near Ben-Gurion Airport, our national airport, the heart of our air travel where millions come and go every year.
Whoa! Whoa!
So let me ask you, if a ballistic missile landed near your local airport, how would your country respond? Because now the real question is this: will Israel respond to the Houthis or go directly after Iran, the source of it all? Shalom from Israel. I am Hanania Naftali with the latest update from the Middle East. Let's break it down. This Sunday morning, a ballistic missile fired from Yemen by the Iranian-backed Houthi rebels crashed near Terminal 1 at Ben-Gurion Airport. 3 people were wounded, sirens were going off, flights were immediately suspended, but only an hour later, airport operations resumed. Now, here's the part that should concern all of us. That missile slipped through 2 layers of defense. First, it bypassed the American THAAD systems, which are supposed to provide advanced interception capabilities against long-range threats. Then, it got through Israel's own defense systems, including the prestigious Arrow 3, which is designed to intercept exactly this kind of missile. The Air Force is now examining how did it happen and whether this is a new Iranian technology that requires attention. But of course, right next to that, I have to add that this is the 27th ballistic missile fired from Yemen, and all 26 were intercepted. Of course, there is no aerial defense system that is 100% sure. So we see a very high rate of interception. So we have to keep that in mind and give credit to the Air Force for that. Only 1 missile out of the 26 slipped through the systems. And of course, mind you, Israel did see the missile as soon as it was launched, and civilians, including myself across Israel, got a 2 to 3 minute heads up before the siren, warning us that a siren is about to go off, and we still missed it. And again, let's not forget, a ballistic missile. Guys, this is not just another rocket from Gaza. Those can be missiles as big as a bus. And if you want to stand with Israel, especially during these critical times, and push back against the BDS and the anti-Israel mob that goes after our soldiers and our country, then go shop at theisraelstore.com. Wear your support loud and proud. Now, people ask me, why are the Houthis doing this? Well, because they're the puppets of Iran. Iran built them up into what they are. Not just to cause trouble in Yemen, but to act as a long arm of Iranian power in the region. And the reason we keep hearing about the Houthis is because Israel already took care of the other arms of the Islamic regime in Iran, that being in Syria, Assad, and Hezbollah in Lebanon. So now they're pretty much left with the Houthis in Yemen. They lost billions of dollars, and they're trying to make their money's worth. And actually, guess what? Arab countries hate the Houthis as well. To Arab countries, the Houthis are as big of a problem as they are to Israel. Saudi Arabia and the UAE, that by the way fought the Houthis and unfortunately failed, even Egypt, all want to see the Houthis defeated. Why? Because they've made the Red Sea a war zone, they've targeted oil infrastructure, and now they're dragging the region towards chaos. The Houthis are good for Iran only and bad for the rest of the world. By the way, since President Trump gave the order to target the Houthis, the US had targeted Yemen more than 900 times. But the Houthis, just like Hamas, just like Hezbollah, should I say just like the Vietnamese during the Vietnam War, have an extensive network of underground bunkers and tunnels in the mountains of Yemen where they hide from strikes. And maybe, just like in the case of Gaza, working from the air, and using the Air Force only may not be sufficient to fix the problem. Just for context, for those of you that are not familiar with the region, Yemen, that had been through a devastating civil war, still there is an ongoing war there between themselves. Yemen is currently divided into two parts. One ruled by the Houthis, the Houthi rebels, and the other one by the Yemeni government, backed by Saudi Arabia and the West. The Yemeni prime minister just recently resigned because he said he tried everything in his power to get rid of the Houthis and failed, which of course was a cause for celebration for the Houthis. Look, nobody wants to see Iran calling the shots in the Middle East. And the Houthis are the thugs they used to make that happen. I mean, the Iranians are using them. If a ballistic missile, just for context, landed near JFK Airport in New York, or Heathrow in London, or in Paris, there would be no debate. There would be retaliation, immediate, loud, and decisive. So why has Israel been silent up until now for more than 3 months of not targeting the Houthis while still being targeted by the Houthis? Well, that's because Washington asked us to be, according to reports. The U.S. has been leading airstrikes on Houthi targets in Yemen for months now, and behind the scenes, they have been asking Israel to stay out of it. Again, according to reports, not something that is confirmed. But they asked Israel to stay out of it, especially because Trump's envoy was engaging in direct talks with Iran about a nuclear deal. But guess what? Those talks are not going anywhere. Iran's response has been simple, along the words of, we'll talk, but don't touch our missile program. The same missile program, by the way, that just sent a ballistic threat on an international airport. The Islamic regime in Iran thinks the U.S. is dumb. And they want to manipulate the West into removing sanctions on Iran without giving up their nuclear ambitions. And they will lie if they have to achieve that goal. Never trust them. If the nuclear talks are dead and Iran continues sending missiles through its proxies, then maybe it's time to stop playing by the rules. Maybe it's time for Israel to go beyond just retaliating against the Houthis. Maybe it's time to actually target Iran itself. Because, let's be honest, hitting the foot soldiers doesn't stop the general. Every time Israel hits Hezbollah in Lebanon, or the Houthis in Yemen, or the militias in Syria, Iran just replaces them. Sure, it may take them time, but that's what they're gonna do. They don't lose sleep. But if Israel were to strike the core, the military-industrial brain inside Iran that builds, funds, and exports these terrorists, the entire terror axis would feel it. When a tree drops poisonous fruit, you don't waste time swatting flies around it, you chop the root. Now, shifting to a different topic in Israel's north, let's talk about Syria. Because things are heating up in a dangerous way. This week, according to a report which Israel denies, Israeli fighter jets carried out airstrikes on jihadi militias that are pro-Erdogan, pro-Turkey, and are equipped and funded by Turkey. But here's the thing. During that mission, something rare and risky happened, not too far from Israel's northern border. Turkish fighter jets showed up in front of the Israeli jets. They sent them electronic warning signals, flew close to them, and they also, according to their report, they sent them a brief radio communication that took place between the two sides to avoid escalation. It didn't turn into a dogfight, but it came close to escalation between Israel and Turkey. Now, here's the bigger picture. Turkey has been slowly, quietly becoming an enemy of Israel. It started with, Erdogan speaking against the prime minister, Erdogan saying we're going to do that and this. But here we're actually seeing, for the first time, an actual military confrontation between Israel and Turkey. Look, Erdogan's government has been backing Islamist groups, attacking Israel in every international forum, and now they're becoming more active militarily inside Syria, especially in areas where Israel operates regularly to dismantle Iranian or radical Islamist terrorism. Turkey, like Israel, which shares a border with Syria, now sees an opportunity after the fall of Assad, and as the Russians are losing their influence in Syria, Turkey wants to make Syria a satellite country. Look, we have seen in previous years how Syria has just become a playground for superpowers. You know, it was Iran, then Russia, and then Iran and Russia played in Syria. Now, basically, Turkey wants to become the Russia for Syria. They're working to turn the T4 air bases, which Israel has bombed before, into a drone base that they control, basically turning Syrian military bases into pro-Turkey bases. Let me spell it out. A hostile NATO member, Turkey, is now on the ground in Syria defending militias that are pro-Erdogan and watching Israeli airstrikes. Definitely not a friendly situation to the West. That's a nightmare. It puts Israeli pilots at risk. It limits Israel's freedom of action. And it means that the skies over Syria, which Israel uses to prevent weapons from reaching Hezbollah and other militias, are becoming more crowded and more dangerous. And all of this is happening while Syria itself is under its new president, al-Julani, who is trying to reestablish full control. Of course, Israel said, we don't trust in you regime in Syria. To us, it's just another name, but the same danger. And since Turkey is I think either the first or the second largest army in NATO, the actual army that has more power than other NATO members, nobody wants to say anything about it. Look, in the Middle East, whoever controls the skies control the story. And if Israel doesn't write that story, someone else will, with our enemies holding that pen. Shifting now to Gaza. Back home, the IDF, the Israeli army, has called up tens of thousands of reservists. It's a sign of a wider operation in Gaza that's being prepared. The goal, of course, is to finish what we started. Hamas is still holding our civilians, 59 hostages. They're still hiding behind their own civilians, still playing games with people's lives. But our army isn't backing down. We're pushing forward, block by block, tunnel by tunnel. Look, I'll tell you what Hamas understands. Strength, not begging. Actually, every terrorist organization, that's the only language they speak. Because they use political terrorism. They won't return a single hostage because we ask nicely. They'll do it only when we make it too costly for them not to. Hostages don't come home through hope. Hope is good, but they come home when their captors realize that they're out of time. Let me leave you with this. Iran thinks it can play this long game. It moves its pieces across the chessboard from Lebanon to Syria to Yemen, while the West debates diplomacy and holds meetings. But the longer Israel waits, the more dangerous these pieces become. Look, Israel is standing exactly in the middle, and it cannot watch evil grow. After a missile exploded in the vicinity of our airport, there is no more excuse to wait. If the talks with Iran are dead, then Israel's gloves should come off. So, subscribe to my YouTube channel if you want more of the truth without the media's filters. I'm Hanania Naftali. Truth matters. Strength matters. And Israel is just getting started.